Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Pastor. We're really happy that you could join us in this series, and we hope that you found these to be beneficial. Today, we're going to focus on the subject of outreach. And as you know, outreach is very important, and the subject of how Bethany supports our outreach partners and which partners to support and how well we do that is very important. So I do want to make an announcement that Elder John Inman is recently taking the chair of the outreach committee, and John is a very organized and capable guy, so I'm sure it's going to be a great benefit to the committee to have John on board there, so we thank John for that. And like most of what is going on at Bethany now, we are looking at all the things that we do, and we're looking at how well we do them and how we do them. And when it comes to missions and outreach, we are just now starting to turn our attention to that. And what we have found is that, like most things, we have accumulated many different ministry partners over the years, and we have almost never eliminated any. So we have a great number of people that we support. And as we go forward with our vision process, as we go forward with looking at how Bethany does ministry, we want to be focused on a fewer number of mission partners, and we want to be very good partners with them. And so that is one of the things we're looking at. And so what I'm going to be talking today with Pastor Bob about is what's that going to look like for Bethany, and why is it important to support some of the missionaries that we are supporting, and how we plan to do that. So just wondering, Bob, could you kind of give us an overview of how you see the mission process and how you see outreach working in the local church?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. Before we get into that, I wanted to thank everyone for cards and letters and prayers and well wishes during my physical adventures here over the last couple of months. It's been very meaningful, and it always seems that a card or a prayer wish comes from Bethany at a time when I'm struggling. So thanks to all of you for doing that. It really did mean a lot, and I'm grateful for your support and prayers. So start with that. Well, as I think about mission and outreach and all that's involved in that, again, my mind goes back to having a biblical basis for what we do. And the biblical basis for what we do is the Great Commission. And in the Great Commission, and in Acts chapter 1, we've been instructed to do mission in our own backyard, and we've been instructed to do mission in our area and in our state and around the world. So a combination of the Great Commission and Acts 1:8 gives us a really good pattern for thinking about how we're to think about mission. One of the things that I experience in most churches is kind of what I call mission drift. That we may have known exactly what we were doing and why we were doing it at one point, but over time that becomes less and less clear, and particularly for churches that have been struggling with their identity and aren't clear on their mission and vision. And so one of the things we've begun to look at is this whole area of foreign missions. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about local missions and our vision teams at work, and you're hearing lots about that, and we'll hear a lot more about that. But we started to take a look at the mission agencies and organizations that Bethany has been supporting. And as we've done that, lots of interesting things come up in that discussion, and we've been doing this for now like 3 months, just kind of taking it apart. Who are these folks, and why did you support them, and how did they get started there? And like I'm guessing 90% of churches in the United States, sometimes people on the team didn't even know exactly who they were, or why we were supporting them, or how that got started, or are they doing anything now? And so by drift, I mean after a while, you just write checks to people without really engaging with who they are. And in my judgment, that's not only unfair to the church, that's very unfair to our mission partners. Because what we're essentially saying is you're really only worth a check to us. And if there is no contact, how do we know how to pray for you? How do we know what God's doing? How do we celebrate? How do we praise with you? How do we have you come here and be a part of us? How do we go to where you are and be a part of what you're doing? So the idea has been kind of an evaluation of who have our mission partners been over the last at least number of years. The second part of that is that my thinking, and I think a biblical way of thinking about this, is it's far better to support fewer things and support them really, really well than it is to support all kinds of things, have no idea who they are, have no relationship with them, and simply be a check-writing society. Because you can only really meaningfully interact with a number of mission partners. That number is dependent on the size of the church. Maybe it's 7, 8, 9, whatever. But the idea being that whoever God leads us to support, we want to be very serious about our relationship with them. We want to know exactly what's going on in their ministry. We want to know what their needs are. How do we go serve them well? How do we bring them here to be an encouragement to them? And so this idea of kind of to prevent mission drift, you have to be actively engaged with these partners, or else just, again, over time, it drifts off and we're writing checks for no reason. Now, it doesn't mean that all those other organizations aren't good organizations and good people and doing great things. Of course they are. But who has God called us to seriously interact with? So that's one part of what we've been doing, trying to prioritize who are the people that God has called us to. A second part of that has been, I know Bethany has not been used to engaging in General Assembly and Presbytery stuff for quite some time, and that's okay. But here's some news. We're part of a General Assembly, and we're part of a Presbytery, and we're, by the way, also part of a ministry network, which is a group of churches within our Presbytery who are doing a number of things together. So my conviction is, if we're going to be a part of a denomination, and if we're going to be a part of a Presbytery, and if we're going to be a part of a ministry network, then those are things that we ought to be supporting. That's what we all agreed as a Presbytery we're going to do. And so our Presbytery focus has been Sierra Leone. And all of you have heard some of what's going on there. In fact, in 2 weeks, I lost track of it, but we'll be having an update on some things that have happened. You, as Bethany, gave a big contribution to help the secondary school get finished, and it's finished, so we'll have some pictures of that. My hope over time is that Samuel will be able to come here. We'll be able to go to Sierra Leone, be able to engage with them. We can do things through video, et cetera, et cetera. So our Presbytery focus has been the nation of Sierra Leone. Our ministry network focus, which is the kind of the North Pittsburgh group of churches, has been a work in the Idora section of Youngstown. And so we have been planting a church there in a very underserved community that includes building a cafe. All kinds of things have happened there over the last number of years. That's what our 20 churches have been doing together and focus on. So I feel like if that's what we're a part of, then that's something that we ought to do. So kind of shifting some thinking around denominational and Presbytery and ministry network resources and saying these ought to be priorities for us. So the combination of doing that and just kind of weeding through who are these folks and what are they doing, and again, there were lots of a number of ministries that people recognized right away and knew what were. There were a number that we went around the room and people were like, not really sure who that is, but we're writing them checks. I don't think that's the way.
And I think didn't we count 26, maybe around 26 different ministries that we were supporting, which obviously 26 is more than we can really keep a close track of, that we can develop a relationship with, and that we can really get to know on a personal basis.
Well, absolutely, and again, to engage the level we're talking about is going to take some time and energy, even with 8 or 9 or whatever that number the Lord has for us to do. The other thing is, my sense in being here a few months now, Bethany is still wrapping its mind around the idea that we're essentially a 100-member church, or 120, or I don't know what that number is, but it's not 500 or 600 anymore. And so we've got to be really thoughtful about the resources that we have, that they are making a difference, and that they're, because they're concentrated and focused, lives are being changed, we're interacting, God's doing special things, amazing things happen. So that's the important part of what we're doing.
Yes, and I think it's still, it's important to realize too that, part of being a Presbyterian congregation is part of working together with other Presbyterian churches. I think in some denominations that's not so much true. You might be a church sort of on your own. Each church is kind of left to do their own thing, but really part of the Presbyterian tradition is working together with other churches, and that's part of where our Presbytery-wide support of a ministry comes in. But that still leaves us room for ministries that Bethany supports,
of course,
all on its own. Those that are important to us, and in the long run, those are probably going to wind up being ones that are part of our vision, our mission, that really connect with that. So, we've been talking about the vision team and how important that is, and this is just another reminder that what the vision team comes up with is probably going to have an impact on which missionaries that we support.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And then again, because we as Presbyterians are connectional, that's true. I know that's not been the experience in previous denominations that will remain nameless, but in the EPC, this is a value that's very important to us. And it's why we said, not only are we going to do things denominationally, and not only is each presbytery going to have a mission focus, but even within that, smaller groups are going to have these ministry networks, of which we have 6, are picking a focus to do. So it's a very high value for us, a very important value for us, and we can do a lot of things together that we couldn't do by ourselves. And when we join together and God's in it, amazing things begin to happen. But it takes focus, and it takes purpose, and it takes the ability not to let things drift for long periods of time until you stop and take a good look at what God's doing.
Yeah. So I've been a member of Bethany a long time, and I remember when I first came here, missions and outreach was a very big priority. And over the years, I think we've kind of drifted away from that, but I think we're going to be renewing that effort. We're going to be putting more emphasis on that in the future. So I think that's good news. I'm excited about that, and that's what you can look forward to. So I hope this little time talking about outreach has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, be sure and send us an email or stop into church and ask one of us, and we'll be glad to talk about it. So again, we are glad you tuned in today, and join us next time for another episode of Ask the Pastor.